Good morning. Can we stand to sing hymn number 379, Come We Who Love God's Name? Come we who love God's name, and let our joys be known. Together God's great love proclaim, and thus around the throne. Let those refuse to sing who never knew our God, but we give thanks and praise will bring for love so deep and broad. God's grace on earth is found, the seeds of glory sown, celestial fruits on earthly ground, from faith and hope have grown. The hill of Zion yields 1,000 sacred sweets before we reach the heavenly fields or walk the golden streets. Then let our songs abound and every tear be dry. We're traveling through Emmanuel's grounds to greater worlds on high.
Good morning. Allow me to welcome you to the opening convocation of the spring semester of 2018 for the Chicago Theological Seminary. Please accept my deepest thanks to each of you that you have chosen to be with us as we continue our tradition of excellence and dedication to learning and justice in our world. It is particularly an honor to offer this welcome as the new president of this magnificent school. The journey which you continue and to which I am now joined is one that seeks to materialize the possibility that we all, not just some of us, but all of us, might find new ways to celebrate and cherish our humanity with one another and carry that blessing forth into a broken and wounded world. I offer this welcome to you also as an invitation. Before us is the invitation of the Spirit of life, which beckons us to new places and new spaces to bear the glad tidings of life and abundance in the midst of despair so pervasive in many corners of the world. This invitation comes also with the challenge to bring the best of our knowing, the broadest expression of our understanding, and the richest enfleshment of our commitments to God, to one another, and to the battle for justice. I welcome you then to this marvelous part of the journey onto which the Spirit has beckoned us all, and offer my sincerest prayers that this semester will be one in which you will shine in ways that you could never have imagined. Welcome.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees, welcome to the spring term of Chicago Theological Seminary. Welcome students, faculty, staff, and those that are visiting with us live stream. Thank you all for the support that you give to us and to the work that we do here. For some of you, this is the home stretch that you're beginning. Things are supposed to come together. It's not an easy time. Rather, it's a moment that demands almost the greatest part of you. Some of us must push you. Some of us must pull you. But all of us are pulling for you and cheering for you. Bless you on your journey. Stay focused and run the race that is before you, looking to the one that is the perfecter of your faith.
A convocation is literally a gathering or assembly, and at CTS we gather several times a year to mark that part of our life together which is devoted to learning, teaching, writing, and research. As we begin this new semester, the faculty is excited to have Dr. Stephen Ray with us, not only as president, but also as professor of theology. Dr. Ray is a widely published theologian, as most of you know, but he is also well known across theological education as a mentor to other scholars. And although he will not be teaching in the classroom in the immediate future, we all look forward to working with him as leader, scholar, and colleague in the years ahead. We are also excited about the publication since our last convocation of a new book by Dr. Bom-Young So, Associate Professor of Theology and Cultural Criticism. Dr. So's book, published in Korean, is titled, in English translation, Eschatology in American Thought, and it deals with the eschatological underpinning of the history and culture of the United States. Professor So recently told the faculty that he wrote the book as a Korean academic living in the U.S. for many years, partly to help those living elsewhere in the world to understand this country that sometimes seems difficult to understand. We hope to find an opportunity to celebrate Dr. So's book where he might help those of us from the United States ourselves understand it better. This semester, 2 members of our faculty are on sabbatical. Dr. Lee Butler, Distinguished Service Chair and Professor of Theology and Psychology, and Dr. Scott Haldeman, Associate Professor of Worship. We look forward to seeing them again in the fall. And we welcome back from sabbatical today's convocation speaker. Dr. Joanne Terrell is our Associate Professor of Ethics, Theology, and the Arts. Professor Terrell has been teaching at CTS since 1995. Previously, she earned her BA at Rollins College before going on to Union Theological Seminary in New York, where she earned her MDiv, MPhil, and PhD degrees. Her Union dissertation, written under the direction of Professor James Cone, became the foundation for her 1998 book, Power in the Blood, The Cross in the African American Experience, which we'll be celebrating with a panel discussion here tonight, organized by our Center for the Study of Black Faith and Life. At the same time, as an ordained minister in the AME Zion Church, Dr. Terrell continues to engage the institutional church, local communities, and the wider society in multiple ways, including through the arts. We look forward to her address in a few minutes on the topic, Purple Blues, Wilderness Joy, Contradicting Sorrow.
Would you stand as you are able and join me in the singing of hymn number 524, This Joy I Have, This Little Light of Mine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This joy I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world didn't take it away. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
A reading of Psalm 27 from the New Living Translation. The Lord is my light and my salvation, so why should I be afraid? The Lord is my fortress, protecting me from danger, so why should I tremble? When evil people come to devour me, when my enemies and my foes attack me, they will stumble and fall. Though a mighty army surrounds me, my heart will not be afraid. Even if I am attacked, I will remain confident. The one thing I ask of the Lord, the one thing that I seek most, is to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, delighting in the Lord's perfections and meditating in God's temple. For God will conceal me there when trouble comes, and he will hide me in his sanctuary. He will place me out of reach on a high rock. Then I will hold my head high above my enemies who surround me. At his sanctuary, I will offer sacrifices of joy, singing and praising the Lord with music. Hear me as I pray, O Lord. Be merciful and answer me. My heart has heard you say, "Come and talk with me." And my heart responds, "Lord, I am coming. Do not turn your back on me, and do not reject your servant in anger, for you have always been my helper. Don't leave me now. Don't abandon me, O God of my salvation. Even if my mother and my father abandon me, the Lord will hold me close. Teach me how to live, O Lord, and lead me along the right path, for my enemies are waiting for me. Do not let me fall into their hands, for they accuse me of things I have never done, and with every breath they threaten me with violence. Yet I am confident I will see the Lord's goodness while I am here in the land of the living. Wait patiently for the Lord. Be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord. This is the word of God.
But changes came in the family when I was 13 and I was sent to school in Jacksonville. I left Eatonville, the town of Orleanders, Azora. When I disembarked from the riverboat at Jacksonville, she was no more. It seemed that I had suffered a sea change. I was not Zora of Orange County anymore. I was now a little colored girl. I found it out in certain ways. In my heart as well as in the mirror, I became a fast brown, warranted not to rub nor run. But I am not tragically colored. There's no great sorrow dammed up in my soul, nor lurking behind my eyes. I do not mind at all. I do not belong to the sobbing school of Negrohood who hold that nature somehow has given them a low down, dirty deal and whose feelings are all but about it. Even in the helter-skelter skirmish that is my life, I have seen that the world is to the strong regardless of a little pigmentation, more or less. No, I do not weep at the world. I am too busy sharpening my oyster knife. Someone is always at my elbow reminding me that I am the granddaughter of slaves. It fails to register depression with me. Slavery is 60 years in the past. The operation was successful and the patient is doing well, thank you. The terrible struggle that made me an American out of a potential slave said on the line. The Reconstruction said get set, and the generation before said go. And I am off to a flying start, and I must not halt in the stretch to look behind and weep. Slavery is the price I paid for civilization, and the choice is not with me. It is a bully adventure and worth all that I have paid through my ancestors for it. No one on earth ever had a greater chance for glory, the world to be won and nothing to be lost. It is thrilling to think, to know that for any act of mine, I shall get twice as much praise or twice as much blame. It is quite exciting to hold the center of attention on the national stage with spectators not knowing whether to laugh or to weep.
Let us stand. The Lord is my light and my salvation. The Lord is my light and my salvation. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I fear? The Lord is my light of my life. shall I fear? In the time of trouble, God shall hide me. In the time of trouble, God shall hide me. In the time of trouble, God shall hide me. Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Whom shall I fear? Wait on the Lord and be of good courage. Wait on the Lord and be of good courage. Wait on the Lord and be of good courage. Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I fear? Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life.
As primary duties that fall to the civil and civic-minded, including black clerical elites. He posited that education, the denial thereof, as well as the management thereof in the construction of the post-bellum labor force and the invention of a permanent underclass of servants, was and remains the battleground for social control of freed people. Education prescribes civility. It relies deeply on the great man theory of historical change. I mean, presumably great man, literally, as Thomas Carlyle imagined him in the mid-19th century. Here in our classrooms and worship spaces, we encounter Abrahamic faiths, Mosaic law, Socratic method, Platonic forms, Aristotelianism, the Julian calendar, the Pauline epistles, the Johannine corpus, the Thomistic synthesis, the Jesuit priesthood, the Gregorian calendar, Kantian ethics, Jeffersonian democracy, the Napoleonic era, Marxist-Leninist revolution, Darwinian evolution, Foucauldian critiques, and Levinasian ethics. These patronymic designations persist in our theological lexicons and obfuscate the multifaceted reality of the underside of history, as though enslaved and colonized people and our experienced truths are monolithic or of little consequence. According to Joy James, such normatively white male non-specificity promotes the disappearance of the detailed historical and empirical record while simultaneously discussing the disappeared. Non-specificity, what the late ethicist Beverly Harrison referred to sardonically as the smudge factor concerning both the particularities and perquisites of whiteness, and the disappearance of the subjugated is the reason why Americans do not study or celebrate White History Month. Why we do not, for example, readily recognize Haiti's central place in the history of the Americas. Why many students in systematic theology do not initially appreciate Black theology as normatively Christian theology. Joy James distills her claim in this way: in America, non-specificity promotes erasure. Erasure of the physical presence, agency, creative genius, spiritual insight, and material contributions of Black children, women, and men to civil life, to the world we have always been making together. Erasure does not imply merely invisibility, but more gravely, that persons of color are able to be viewed appropriately only through those representatives whom the Western, white, male, armed, moneyed, otherwise empowered, habituated controllers of images and discourse select on their behalf. Even though Abraham, Moses, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Jesus, and John in all likelihood have different ethnogenesis from the greatly foreshortened list of Northern European great men who populate Western accounts of history, they have been represented to us as white sufficiently enough to have long ago hijacked our collective imagination through the visual and performed arts. Tiana Van Dyke decries, quote, the production of normality through art and literature, which goes beyond just the proportion of body and structure of face, but it in fact supersedes into race. From iconography, the creation of paintings, murals, and statuary, to theater and filmmaking, to hymnody, religiously validated art erases people of color and attests to the infinite qualitative distinction between God stylized as white and human beings. The recent discovery, authentication, and sale of Leonardo da Vinci's painting, Salvator Mundi, Savior of the World, for $450.3 million, an image of a European man styled as Jesus of Nazareth, just juxtaposed with the revelation of the sale of African human beings into slavery at $400 in Libya, seems to me to be white supremacy's reassertion of its odious central claim that there is an infinite qualitative distinction between white people and Black people. Like the legal, social, political, and scientific codes, epistemologies, and texts that are the subjects in and of Western meta-narrative, reducible to the scope or influence of a great man, the performed and visual arts have been likewise subjected to processes of validation and invalidation in the academy by limiting the artist to the role of entertainer, by describing him or her as self-motivated, idiosyncratic, almost superfluous to serious institutional work, and even harmful to an institution's image, and by rewarding only those artists who faithfully represent the imago whiteness, or through what Cornel West, following Ralph Ellison in Invisible Man, describes as the normative gaze of whiteness. I wish to propose instead a normative gaze of purpleness. Womanist is to feminist as purple is to lavender. Alice Walker's analogy reflects the intensified oppression Black women face as a consequence of living with the paternalism, the rapacity, and the violence of racism, sexism, heterosexism, and for many of us, compulsory celibacy. And because nothing attends Black people more doggedly everywhere we live on the planet more than poverty, classism. In Purple Blues, I lament the recent spate of extrajudicial lynching of black children, women, and men. The trickle-down Holocaust that has always occurred and regularly occurs since the first transatlantic voyage from that massively rich mother continent, Africa, to these shores, that acquires fresh momentum with each life lost in each mass shooting and each school shooting, perhaps an unintended consequence of the failure to, regulate America's multiple militia groups, militia-minded individuals, and the contemptible, disgusting, profiteering NRA. Purple Blues was a particular response to a particular nightmare, but it can also be a response to the social death to which all women are vulnerable and 3% of American men face, that is, a more protracted pathway to physical death. The Me Too movement evokes for me the Purple Blues, not merely because I am indignant over the prevalence of sexual assault, the paralysis and fear it can evoke, and the personal consequences it can have on a soul. I too have experienced many times over the indignity of sexual assault and social and cultural impropriety that verges on assault. So much so that rape culture has hijacked what passes for art in our national imagination in the formulaic, gratuitous violence against women and girls on the most popular television shows. I believe there's a direct link to the ways we have been systematically inured to sexual violence and the fact that the resident of the White House is a self-confessed violator of women, and the fact that he has not been prosecuted, neither figuratively nor literally. I applaud the Me Too movement that the very audacious, courageous, serious, in-charge, womanish Tarana Burke founded. Yet I lament the ways the media focuses on the personal experience of sexual assault perpetrated by and against Hollywood elites and led by sensationalism eclipses national efforts to end human trafficking at home and abroad by organizations like the Polaris Project, Futures Without Violence, and Freedom United. Were it not for the healing power of music and all art forms, there is no way to contradict the multiple sorrows of human existence. There is no way to unite our efforts towards a greater good. And the womanist analogy, womanist is to feminist as purple is to lavender, can only mean we are comparing oppressions rather than fundamentally referring to the intensity of the fight to be free, and joyfully so. If the first, second, and seventh of my 10 tenets of art have merit, that is, that everyone is an artist, that anyone can be an artist in any medium as long as she or he is willing to be a beginner, and that art can be utilitarian if it bespeaks an alliance with life, then the audacious act of naming myself as an artist is warranted, not merely by my level of preparation and or level of talent I perceive I have, but primarily by the fact of my somebodyness, as Dr. Cone conceptualizes it, and as I claim in my 10-point platform for a womanist agenda, by the fact that as a black woman, I bear as fully as all other persons the image and imprimatur of divine reality. Secondly, my identity as an artist is confirmed for me by the fact that I was willing to put pen to paper and words to music to mourn the deaths of Sandra Bland and Tamir Rice, or any in the litany of the names of the slain, as a beginning songwriter. Although I am no beginner when it comes to the experience of grief, in the song I was able to articulate the intensified experiences of communal and personal, corporate and private grief, and to raise a standard of prayerful resistance against the unabated lynching. Naming is power. And in this song, I express my will to be with my particular community of identity and accountability, which innovated the spirituals, jazz, and blues, generating distinctive art out of our African heritage and American experience. Thirdly, through my song, devotional aspect, and way of being in the world, I continually demonstrate fierce alliance with life across the cosmos and conversely condemn white supremacist, heteropatriarchal, oligarchical, kyriarchal, and other forms of the machinery of death against which the genre of the blues speaks, not civilly, not sadly, but defiantly, and even joyfully. This is especially true of the subgenre known as the jumpin' blues that came to prominence in the early 1920s due to the jouissance and popularity of artists like Mamie Smith, Ethel Waters, Alberta Hunter, and the Empress of the Blues, Bessie Smith. During this period prior to the Great Depression, the federal government utterly failed in its civic duty to protect its black citizens from white racial violence by refusing to pass the Dyer Anti-Lynching Act in 1922. In writing and performing Purple Blues, which I conceived as an example of jumpin' blues, I am reclaiming my somebodyness as a citizen, as an artist, and as a scholar standing in a musical tradition that affirms the power of one's voice, one's art, one's joy, in order to contradict the social and physical death that threaten to overwhelm every bit of the goodwill and optimism that reside in us. Maybe you recall the words, "I've got the blues, I've got the blues. I've got the deep purple womanist consciousness, self-loving superwoman, broken-hearted black woman blues. Deep purple blues. Every day I've got to pray, 'cause I don't want to be tomorrow's bad news. But like Zora Neale Hurston was not, and by the way, I lived in Eatonville for 4 years after my mother died, so I have this strong connection to Zora Neale Hurston. But like she was not, I am not tragically colored. I am not tragically a woman. I am not tragically anything. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. Having acquired a normative gaze of purpleness after a personal and corporate history of sorrow, after many years of miseducation and misapprehension about who I have been created and called both to be and to become, through Alice Walker's articulation of self-love regardless as the sine qua non of womanist thought, I refuse to erase, not specify, or otherwise unsee the sacred, sacramental value of every person who is, every creature that is, every culture that is, every religion that is potentially revelatory about the one whose magnificent creation compels us to respond justly and with compassion, not merely because we require it, but in order to contradict the one suffering that is part of the one round, the one song that is the universe, and to partake in its magnanimous offer of joy.
Prayer and benediction, but actually this is just benediction. Hear the words of Shakyamuni Buddha. There is no fire like greed, no crime like hatred, no sorrow like separation, no sickness like a hunger of heart, and no joy like the joy of freedom. Health, contentment, and truth are your greatest possessions, and freedom your greatest joy. Look within, be still. Free from fear and attachment. Know the sweet joy of living in the way. Go in health, contentment, and trust. Go in peace and in power. Go in freedom and in joy. Amen. Amin, Ashe.
Joyful, joyful, we adore you, God of glory, God of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before you, opening to the sun above. Melt the clouds of sin and sadness, drive the storms of doubt away. Give her of immortal gladness, fill us with the light of day. All your works with joy surround you, heaven and earth reflect your rays. Stars and angels sing around you, center of unbroken praise. Field and forest, vale and mountain, flowery meadow, flashing sea, chanting bird and flowing fountain, praise shall be. You are giving and forgiving, ever blessing, ever blessed, wellspring of the joy of living, ocean depth of happy rest, loving spirit, mother, love understand. Teach us how to love each other by the mortals join the mighty chorus, which the morning stars begun. Boundless love is before us, joining people hand in hand. Ever singing, march we onward, in the midst of strife. Joyful music leads us onward in the triumph song of Amen.